So without any further ado, Melissa.
Oh my gosh. So good morning. I told Jay and Donna that I would be fast because we know you really want to hear Donna speak. So all right, it's the last day, and I'm sure you're all invigorated, but you're also probably pretty exhausted too. And I'll do also my best to keep you entertained this morning. And I must confess, when I got the email, I was like, I don't think they sent this to the right person. I was like, I'm not sure if this was supposed to go to me or not. But then I started to think about it, and I was like, I can do this. I do have success in writing NSF proposals, and part of that success is also the team that I like to work with. And one of my favorite colleagues is Amy Landis, and we've worked out collaboratively on a lot of proposals together. So she helped me in thinking about this proposal too. And so I attended FOEE in 2011, and some things haven't changed. So for example, really great food and really great drinks. But I left FOEE really, inspired. And the three things that I took away from it, and then I'll get into my tips for writing NSF, is I felt like I had more confidence. I was trying a lot of different, in my mind, innovative things in the classroom. And I was also a younger faculty person, and some of the things failed. And it's really difficult when you're a younger faculty person and things fail. You think it's you personally. And part of what we talked about was it's okay for things to fail in the classroom. And more than likely, the first time they're not going to go really well. So that actually, just hearing that was really helpful to me. The support was really great. I felt like the community was awesome. We had a lot of one-on-one sessions, and I just felt like it was a really fostering and supportive environment. And I hope that you had that experience as well. And just the knowledge of, and I was struck yesterday of there are so many people, so many awesome people in this community, and I thought that was a really good thing for me to take away from being with you the last couple days. So when I did get the email, the timing was great. I had 2 workshops planned. The first workshop was in Beijing, and it was an NSF sponsor workshop, and we were looking at big data analytics in buildings and sustainability. So I was with these great people for 20 days. Many of them are really successful in their technical research area, and they're also very successful in their engineering education area. So I asked that we climb the Great Wall. So I'm a real man now. and this was us climbing the Great Wall. And then I also attended an RCN, Sustainable Cities. It's a NSF Research Coordination Network meeting in Rutgers. And again, a lot of what I call superstars. So I was asking folks, and I asked them the simple question, and this was, this is kind of general in terms of engineering education, but it's also in terms of writing successful NSF proposals. So I asked them, what are the key lessons or points to writing successful NSF proposals? And I tried to synthesize that, and I asked my colleagues too over the last month. My favorite one was from a gentleman. He said, I got 10 to 15 rejections the first time, which is, really hard. It can be very difficult and very stressful. But I thought what he said was also really interesting was that he learned from that process. And so he didn't just, put away the comments and, didn't do anything. He really tried to take those to heart. And so if any of you are panelists, that's also kind of encouraging too, that and now he's very successful. He's received a number of awards over the last 2 years, but he, again, he didn't take the rejections, kind of pack up his bag and go home. The other one was from a program manager. He said that and a couple other folks also said this too, is that if somebody doesn't know what you are writing about, what your goal is, in the first 3 lines or in the first half page, it's very unlikely your proposal is going to be funded. So he said, you really need to say right off the bat, the objective is. That's very, very important. And he has sat in a lot of panels, and I tell my students when they're writing their proposals for their dissertation, and the process is, go and watch trailers. Go and watch, movie trailers, and you know what's going to happen right away. Use that as inspiration when you sit there and write your proposals. The other piece of advice that I thought was really good was to make sure that you contextualize what you're writing about. So it cannot be totally random. You have to contextualize it, or else people are not going to be drawn into what you're writing about. You have to contextualize it. The one thing that helped me was to serve on a panel. We hear that, but until you do that, I think, that's when you really kind of understand the process better. And another piece of advice was know your program and to try different programs. So if you aren't having success in one program, you actually might have success in another program because it might be a new idea in an older, in a different discipline, and it might actually review better. So don't kind of just go into this rut of, for me, I'm only submitting to in my technical area and CBET and environmental sustainability. Try different areas. So that was kind of like the potpourri of the survey. The other thing I got was, this is kind of the message I think is important, is tell a story, tell a story, tell a story. And so part of telling that story is to be creative. So one person that I talked with, he said that, I had my example successful proposals for my mentors. And for the first 2 years, he just tried to stick to that example. And he wasn't successful. And so finally he said, forget it. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to I'm going to be inspired by what I want to do, what questions I want to answer. And then he was really able to express himself and to build a team. And that enthusiasm, I think, came through in the proposals as well. And I thought that was really good advice. The other one is know your audience. So knowing your audience is, I think, a very difficult one. As we know, panels can be very fickle, but you have to be able to convey your ideas in a way that, I always say this, can my mom understand this? My mom's a really smart lady, so if she can understand this in the first couple sentences, it's likely that other folks will be able to understand this as well. But you also have to be able to then take your proposal and to make it really scientific. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult balance. And part of the telling the story is to make it interesting. And so one of my colleagues, he's wonderful. He thinks it's really interesting to look at the interfaces of two different areas. So I've been talking with some of you, and I've been working in the sustainable healthcare arena. So not a lot of people know about sustainable healthcare, and it's the idea of taking sustainable engineering and applying it to the healthcare system, which is 18% of our GDP, and it's really been an underserved area. And this is kind of the idea of looking at unique interfaces. And aesthetics matter. I don't know if guys would say that, but I'll say it. Aesthetics matter. Aesthetics matter. And so one strategy that I have is to put a figure on every other page, or every page. But it can't just be a figure. It has to reinforce what you're trying to say. Someone needs to look at the figure and say, oh, that's what the last 2 pages of text were about. So those are the things that, when you're reviewing this, you do like that break. You do like that reinforcement, and you like that break. And your attitude then is definitely more positive in reviewing it. So that's kind of from my survey. And then in preparing this, I kind of thought, after I was like, okay, should I be doing this? I thought, what story can I personally tell about the success that I've had? And so, it is a long-term strategy. I love my job. I'm in it for the long term, so I like to think in terms of kind of at a strategic level. And so what that meant to me is to start small and then think big. And so we all have different opportunities within our university to apply for different types of funding. So, I applied for internal funding, my colleagues and I, and that was like a $25,000 grant. And with that, we did cross-cutting modules. So it was with module development. And then there's the NCIA program. I'm sure hopefully most of you guys are aware of this. And with the NCIA program, we developed a course. It was called the Design for the Environment course, and we received about $35,000 for that. And then after that, we applied for, at the time, it was called CLI Funding through the National Science Foundation. And that was taking some of the module ideas and some of the course ideas and then expanding it more to create more modules, cross-cutting modules, and then also course enhancement. And then after that, we were able to successfully receive a TOOS 2 proposal. And so that's taking our ideas beyond, what we started with. And then we're working with community colleges. We're putting our information online so that other folks can use them. And the other thing that's really interesting about the TOOS 2 proposal is that I do work in the area of sustainable engineering. And there's, we're trying to answer the question of, should sustainable engineering be in every course? Should it be in one class? There's really not consistency. So not only are we trying to develop course material and modules, we're also trying to answer the engineering education research question of how do we then take sustainability and grand challenges and infuse those in to different curricula. So that's part of what we're looking at as well. And so that's how we've been able to structure our long-term strategy. And I would encourage you to think about this. I don't think this is anything new, but it is something that it's building blocks. And it helps you in your teaching process, of course. So my other piece of advice was to be selective with your collaborators. This is one thing that I have learned is that to work with friends or friendly people. And that I think that enthusiasm and the energy makes everything more successful. We're all more productive when we want to go to a meeting with people that we like. And a red flag is if the proposal's not going well, imagine what's going to happen when the project is funded in 4 years. That's a really, and it's okay to say, I don't think this is going to work out. I think that that's something to think about. And the third thing that I had was for assessment, for real, not these fake assessments where you just put this table in and you have no idea, you hope that it's going to be okay. You have to do your assessment for real, and that allows you to then have your building blocks. So when you go and write your TOOS 2 proposal, you have information, real information, that you've done these assessments. At the University of Pittsburgh, we fortunately have the Engineering Education Research Center. I think many of you know Mary Besterfield-Sakery. She's fantastic. And she's done a wonderful job at teaching us about assessment and providing that resource. And it's available to everyone. I mean, I'm bringing this out because she really did educate me a lot on assessment. And her colleague Renee did as well. So my last little bit of advice, and there's one thing after this, is to go visual. And so, when you go and buy something, you want to know what you're buying. And the proposal's kind of like that too. When someone's recommending something, they want to know. And so we've been doing these kind of things to show, what we're really doing, because sometimes that's hard to convey in engineering education research proposals. So this was an example that we had in one proposal where we would say, this is the old life cycle assessment class. Okay, we have our course objectives, our class structure, and now with the new class, this is then what it's going to look like. So that people know explicitly, at least hopefully you do, what that change will be. And I think that is helpful. It reinforces what you're trying to do. And so my last thing isn't written down, and I'll wrap up. But I personally think that for the broader impacts, and Jay's going to talk about that as well, is that the broader impacts to me is really why we're doing our job. This is the true inspiration. And what I have found in working in the area of services, that's when my research ideas are the best. And it's really, that's when you come up with the awesome ideas, is when you're working with the community and working with the students. So to see that as an opportunity and not just another broader impacts area. So that's it. Thank you.